I don't know if David Song is our sole high school representative on the panel. I don't know if all of you know him or not, and I thought I'd just introduce him very quickly. He works with the Chicago Debate Commission, and I asked him to come here to talk about recruiting and retention from a high school coach's perspective and from a high school student's perspective, given his experience in the Urban Debate Leagues here in Chicago.
Sure.
Thanks, David.
So I start out with a bit of a unique disadvantage in not knowing, I'm the only person on this panel who was not coached at the NDT college level. So I don't know all the challenges that you face in retaining your students, motivating them, driving them to succeed at the academics that are so important to them, and the competitive success in debate that is important to you. As Fitz mentioned, my perspective is this. I coached as a high school national circuit coach in the Chicago area for about 10 years, and I came to the Chicago Urban Debate League for the last 5 years. And what led me to my current line of work and what makes it important to me, and some of the perspective I'll share with you, is my perspective in being a leader in the Illinois high school debate community was we had a community of policy debate schools that dwindled. I debated at Niles West High School in the late 90s. We had something like 30 schools that did debate. Our state tournament had close to 100 teams competing. My last year coaching at Oak Park River Forest High School, I coached at Evanston Township before that, we had something like 6 schools and 25 teams. So in Illinois, and I work primarily with educators and I talk to teachers every day, the message of policy debate, the lesson of the value of policy debate has been generally lost. In the suburbs, in privileged communities, policy debate is seen as sort of a nice extravagance if you can afford it, but the educational core mission is not reaching the same audience it was. And that's an old story. All of you who have coached and worked with high school teams know this is true. The dwindling of high school policy debate is significant, but I get to give you the success story of urban debate a little bit, and thank you for that. We're lucky. In the Urban Debate Network, and I don't mean to speak for all 25 cities and all the various people who do my work, but in Chicago, we're lucky that we have 54 high schools that do policy debate. We have over 1,000 kids that do policy debate. So it's daunting, but it's sort of awe-inspiring to me that in the state of Illinois, there are 7 schools outside of Chicago that do policy debate. We have 54. And all of these schools, what you have in common is something important. One thing that I think I've really learned in my line of work, it was a process of acculturation for me. I came in with certain norms about debate, coming from a national circuit background. And one of the things I've learned is the importance of teaching and mentorship in reaching students. So most of our students in Chicago, and we have close to 1,000 kids, 54 schools, the results are pretty remarkable, and I'll talk about this in a second. But most of those kids don't know what debate is when they come in. They don't have family members who are attorneys. They don't have brothers and sisters who debated. They don't have any cultural experience with debate. To them, the reason they join debate, the reason they get involved, and we do some, exit surveys, and we do some focus groups with students. And the 2 most common things they say are, 1, they're approached by a teacher who says, I know you don't know what this is, but debate could be something that you'd be good at. You should try this. And this is probably not such a strange thing. Most of you in high school were not debate superstars at the beginning either. You were approached by somebody who told you you should give this a try. The second thing we hear, though, most commonly from our students in Chicago, and keep in mind, we're from different parts of the country here, but in Chicago we have one of the most segregated cities in the world. In America, we might be the most segregated northern city that we have. Our school system has every range of income, of socioeconomic level. We have students who go to Northside College Prep who have the highest ACT score in the entire state of Illinois. So the average ACT score at Northside College Prep is 30 or 31, so that's pretty smart, right? And then we have a wide swath of schools on the south and southwest side of Chicago, the west side of Chicago, where, to be honest, these are communities where there is no middle class. There is no family history of high educational attainment. The culture that supports things like debate in schools has to be established. And one thing I think that's worked in the urban debate experiment is we've empowered teachers. So I came in, one of my biases was, as a former debater, was to think that teachers who don't have a background in debate don't have value in the process of making students into debaters. I think all the people on this panel and all of the coaches on this panel who have recruited our students have seen that almost all these students debated for coaches, for leaders who were not former debaters. And a lot of my work, to be honest, is training teachers to work with students, to get them to motivate students, to get them to know enough about debate where our students can come to you with enough debate knowledge, passion for debate, that they can be successful in college. So just to give a brief statement on the success of that, one lucky thing in urban debate now is, thanks to Naudel and Linda Lidstrom and Lenny Gale and our work in Chicago, our partners at the Chicago Public Schools, we have studies now, peer-reviewed studies in education journals, 3 of them in the last 3 years, that show that students, on average, and we serve 85% high Title I students, so students in poverty, reduced free lunch. We serve 85% minority students in Chicago. And of those students, in 10 years, looking at 10,000 students, the results were just remarkable. And this is one reason I was like, I want to be a part of this. The average student is 3 times less likely to drop out, 70% more college ready on English, twice as college ready on ACT English reading scores. And our students, we know, develop the intellectual confidence and the academic skills to hold their own in college. That's not something we can take for granted. I meet a lot of students and a lot of teachers who tell me the best students in our school, honor students, in failing schools where the average ACT score is 14 or 13 or 15, they come back home in 6 months, and they go to school, they go away to school, they get scholarship money, and they're not successful. And one thing I think that urban debate offers is the opportunity for students to work with, build relationships with students who are from different backgrounds, who are more from backgrounds where they're expected to succeed. So one thing I would say, just as we think about recruiting and retention, I do want to talk more to what you're interested in here. A couple of things I've learned in students I've worked with, students I've personally taught, and students that have come from our league. A couple things. One is the mentors, the experience that our students have is they come out of, most of them, almost all of them, are a part of debate because teachers have inspired them. So I know in college, competition is so paramount, it's so important to so many of you. But one thought about our educational mission and who we serve is what universities can do to allow students to be college ready, to allow students to succeed where they wouldn't ordinarily do that. I have a number of friends in this room, and a couple of former students, and a couple of friends on this panel who have helped students that I've worked with and I've known to have that opportunity. So a great example of this is, I'm sure Mike will get an opportunity to talk about this, but Hakeem Muhammad from King College Prep. I read an article, and thanks for sharing this, about his success with a transition program, having mentors, having academic work that prepared him to be a Dean's List student. And when I saw that story, I was so heartened by that. And to know that he's not only, I knew he was going to be a successful debater, I knew Hakeem Muhammad was going to win awards from the start. But to know that he's an honor student at the College of West Georgia meant a lot. Now, Hakeem comes from a school, King College Prep, on the south side, where I don't know if all of you have been following the news about this young woman in Chicago who unfortunately got shot and killed a couple weeks ago, right? Her funeral's tomorrow. Arnie Duncan, First Lady, they're all coming down to see this. This has been a big story in the news. It's a young woman named Hadia Pendleton, and I don't say this to be maudlin, it's just a fact. What reminds me of who we work for and who we want to serve are students like Hadia. Hadia was one of our students, and I don't say this to be dramatic. She attended our summer program 2 years ago. She worked with instructors like Donnie Peters, who's here, a couple other instructors in our program. But she was one of our students, and she's a student who we've lost to the community that many students like her are struggling to get through, to get to college. So the point isn't that we need to be emotionally moved enough by poverty and neglect and violence to say debate is the answer to that. It's not for a lot of students, but a couple things that I think we need to keep in mind, and particularly for my friends in college who are looking at what kind of students you want to reach and serve. One thought. One assumption that I made, and one assumption that I think some of you might make, is that our minority students who are successful, who study hard, need debate, and getting them in the door, getting them interested in debate, or offering them a scholarship, or talking to them about debate is enough. Jackie mentioned a young man that I knew, Jeff Stone, as well, who struggled academically at OU, and there have been a couple of the stories of students I've known who didn't succeed at college academically. I've known brilliant students, brilliant debaters, promising kids. Their life story should be a movie, but they go to college and they're on probation and they're not successful right away. That reminds me that programs like West Georgia's transition programs, academic programs are so important. Remembering that students often are disengaged from the schools they are a part of. Debate's the one thing that keeps them interested in being successful students. But I think another thing we have to remember too is our students who are successful, who are straight A students, who are great at all the things they're supposed to be great at, there are a number of them who go to college and don't find debate something that catches their interest. They don't find a community that welcomes them. I think as well, we assume that students love debate enough that it stands out among the many things that you can do in college, the many opportunities that students have. To be honest, I've had students who were minority students who needed money to go to school. They were good enough students where they applied to debate schools like Michigan State or University of Texas Dallas, a couple other schools. And they were lucky enough that they went to school, they got scholarship money for their academics or for being a minority student. But they didn't end up having to debate. And there were a number of programs they looked at, so it's not doing any particular program, but they weren't able to connect to those programs. So one of the really important things I think, and one of the reasons I value a forum like this and our relationships with colleges we've worked with are, our students don't know about scholarships for the most part as much as they should. So to be honest, we keep a website and we get contacted by various college directors of debate. So I value very much, some of my friends on this panel and some of my friends in the audience who have reached out to me individually about scholarship opportunities, or to someone like Luke Hill who works for Nautil. But I think personal relationships based on knowing somebody from the national circuit or from college debate aren't enough, right? There are so many students who are interested and could be great debaters. Hakeem Muhammad's astounding, but I know 4 or 5 other students who could be Hakeem Muhammad right now. I know one student just in particular, a student named Josh Rivera from Lane Tech. He won the Urban Debate National Championship, or was a top speaker a couple years ago. He was interested in college debate. He's currently the #1 Parley debater in the country. Parley, whatever that is. But the point is, I knew this kid definitely, could have been a kid who was in the elims of the NDT, if not the late elims. He's a kid who should have been recruited heavily by a lot of schools. I feel a bit guilty that I didn't have the reach and the bandwidth to make the connections that he needed. But he was a kid who wasn't a stellar student, a good student, but a phenomenal debater with a lot of a high ceiling, a lot of room to grow. So for kids like that, or for kids, not to mention other names, but the 4 or 5 other kids who are from schools like King, or kids like Hakeem Muhammad, who could be stars in college debate, we need to develop relationships and to develop formal structures where we can work with coaches to get them recruited, to get them to know about opportunities. I Google a bunch of universities and say, what scholarships do you have? And that's cool, put it up on a website. But it's great to know that colleges are thinking about. So Dan Fitzmyer and I have talked a lot about using his summer camp as a way to recruit students and to build a pipeline where the next great debater, the next Peyton Lee, the next Matt Fisher could be an urban debater, and that means a lot to me. I'm very happy to talk about that with you individually, but if you're in a city with an urban debate network, if you are connected to people like Luke Hill or to other people who are involved in urban debate, it is important that we develop these relationships. They're not nearly developed well enough. Many of our students are superstars. I knew Marcel Rahman, Kevin Hearn, Marcel Gonzalez. If you didn't recruit them, there's something wrong with you, right? They're phenomenal debaters. We have a number of students, though, who are not quite, TOC Elam caliber, but who need those relationships. Last point. I think one other thing that we've seen is when you recruit our students, as Jackie mentioned, it's not always a success story. There are students who are not ready academically, there are students who are not ready interpersonally, there are students who are not ready in their maturity, but being a part of a program and being supported by coaches who are attuned to their educational goals, who are attuned to goals more than how many cards they cut or their competitive level, and who are able to build a culture where our students want to bring in other students like them. So just to name an example, I've been happy to see at schools like Sanford, for example, we've had multiple students who have worked with relationships with other students who are from a minority background to say, look, I really like going to school here. Ryan Galloway's a hell of a coach. I want students like me to debate here. And I'm heartened to know that one of my former students, one of our students from last year, and hopefully more students at schools like that will sell others on the value of debate, sell others on your college program, and can work with your program to build positions where urban debaters are not just oppositional figures or people who are part of debates about how non-inclusive the college debate community is. I'm kind of lucky that I don't get to see all those Clash of Civilization debates that you're in all the time. I don't really know what that's like now. I'm sure it's still heated. I'm sure it's still quite a thing. But what I do see is that for our students, when they are empowered to be leaders in their own teams, that absolutely helps establish that pipeline. And I think the one last thing I would say is relationships. So our students on our exit polls and our surveys tell us the biggest reason they want to be a part of debate is not just because they want to be around students who are just like them. They want the opportunity to meet students, to work with students, to challenge and to be challenged by students who are from vastly different backgrounds. Debate is empowering because most of our society is meant to divide people who are very rich, who are very poor. In debate, you get to tell people who are vastly more privileged than you are wrong and here's why. That's fun, right?
Yes, it is.
It is, right, exactly. And for our students, it's not just about the oppositional debates where they can say, you're wrong, debate's not inclusive, your form of thinking, your entire system of Western rationality is flawed. That's not what it's about, right? For our students, it's the ability to say, I have a network, I have peers who I can count on in college, in my professional life, in the future. And I think one opportunity that I think we don't have yet, and happy to be a part of this because hopefully we can get these conversations started, is how we get our students to programs that they haven't been to before, how they can develop professional, friendly, collegial relationships with other students who don't have the same views about debate, but also how we can develop that network where, to be honest, a lot of our students tell us, we want to be in debate because we don't want to just know kids from the West and South Side of Chicago. We want to be a part of debate because we want to be able to say, I know people who are going to be very important, very powerful, very persuasive someday. I want to advocate for what I believe by having that network. I don't think we're there yet, but urban debate is not a panacea. It does not recruit us and we'll solve your problems. But look, our kids are motivated. When they're on scholarship, they need to do well to keep their scholarship. They need to do well to have an education. They want to do well to attain status in the middle class. They want to do well academically. They want to do well in debate, to have mentors like you, college debate coaches, professors, instructors. And we need to, I think, have fuller conversations and also formal feedback processes where we can say, kids who are interested in debating for the best schools in the country, how do we get there, right? Summer camps are a big start, and that's been a great sign of progress for us. But also, look, Jackie mentioned he recruits urban debate tournaments. We have a big national debate tournament that Luke Hill will run in April. It's great that you all go to St. Mark's and talk to some awesome debaters. I've had some students who were awesome debaters in the suburbs who got recruited by some great schools, and it was a great opportunity. But they were relatively privileged kids who didn't end up debating. I know that we have kids who, if you were to talk to them at the Urban Debate National Championship juniors, who are making their decision about what range of school they could go to, they may not think they can go to Northwestern. They may not think they can go to Georgetown or University of Georgia or whatever school you think of. They don't know that those schools are opportunities for them. And the more we can work as a community to give them that knowledge and give them that access, the better it'll be for you, the better it'll be for us and my students, but the more we'll have those relationships that aren't just oppositional, but are a true network where students can say, I've come from a pretty tough place, but I've been able to meet people who will change the trajectory of my life, not just my coaches, not just individual programs, but a community that lets me know that I have access to real power, and I think that's promising to me.
Thank you very much, David.